All right, click the links to join the channel here over at Subscribestar, the various other links. Really, I think you could probably do this in a 60-second YouTube short where you look at these guys, these characters, and you go, oh, is this some kind of period, authentic Shakespeare or some Ren Fair kind of thing is what it kind of looks like. And then you look a little closely at the guy's uniform and go, wait a minute, that doesn't seem period correct to anything in the past of human history. It's like, oh, this must be something else. Oh, it's a parody, right? It must be you look a little bit closer, like, oh, it's not a parody. It's a show on Disney Plus, and it's called Star Wars. Ah, this has come quite a ways from 1977 Star Wars. It's come to a place where it's no longer recognizable as Star Wars, which is weird because you think you own the property, the IP. And I've said this before, I know, but when you look at the IP that Disney owns, Star Wars being one of them, the Marvel Universe, perhaps you've heard of Marvel Comics, or I think Indiana Jones, and gosh, there's probably a bunch of others. You go, shouldn't you just be making monster, massive hit movies? You have the rights to Star Wars, and you're screwing it up. And literally, that's what they're doing. They're screwing it. It sounds inconceivable. So Disney Plus has got like 4 Star Wars streaming programs. You've probably never heard of them unless you're. The thing is, I was going to say, unless you're a Star Wars fan. The thing is, Star Wars fans probably you watch. It's like you watch one episode and then you're done. It's like you're a fan of Willow, so you watch the new Willow and you're like, oh dear God, you're a fan of The Witcher and you watch The Witcher Blood Rain, or you're a fan of what was the other one, Rings of Power. And then, Lord of the Rings, you watch Ring of the Power, you're like, what's going on here? Well, friendo, I'm going to have to introduce you to I'll say the culture of Bolshevism is what they're doing. It's like, yeah, this is not recognizable as the originals in any shape or form. If you can't, the best you could hope for is to try to be loyal to the originals, like the Peter Jackson said with the Lord of the Rings. That should be the goal, is to try to come as close to originals as possible. No. We're not curative. We're transformative. Wait, you mean you're cultural Bolsheviks? And you're just going to use this to fulfill some Alinsky, Frankfurt School, social re-engineering propaganda? Yeah. So financially, has it been a hit for you? Not so much. But when you got Disney money, you can subsidize anything you want. That's how much money Disney has. Amazon's up there too. Amazon can take Rings of Power, and you'd think like Rings of Power. Okay, you'd think they'll do it bombed. The first season bombed pretty hard. In case you're not reading the stuff, you think you do one more season, right, and give it a chance to bomb, and the one more season will bomb too. And then you go, okay, we'll just cut your losses. There's no sense throwing good money after bad. If Amazon wants to take it all 5 years, they very well could, and they could lose hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. Disney and Amazon are big enough that when they can make these, like Disney's got Mandalorian, Andor, the Book of Boba Fett, and then another one with the guy who was in the Disney prequels and some black chick, and he's like virtue signaling for her or something. He's doing car videos, or it's just, so they had like 4. Disney's got 4 Star Wars streaming shows, and you look at them like, none of these look like Disney Star Wars. This looks like that United Colors. This United Colors or Bennington ad from the 90s, or it just looks like you're selling propaganda. Oh, so what you're saying is, does it remind you of 77 Disney? No. We're going to improve on George Lucas. Say that louder. So people in their 40s and 50s, or people over, 45, 50 can hear, over 50 can hear you say that, and they look at you like, you're going to improve on the 77 to 83 Star Wars? But have you made something? I was going to say, have you made something that equaled Star Wars? No. Very few films were the quantity, the hit that Star Wars was. But at one time, Disney was knocking movies out of the park. That time was in the 90s, in the 80s. In the 80s and 90s, the VHS tapes, the DVDs, back in those days, Disney was a powerhouse. And then when they bought the rights to Lucas, I think 2012, people thought 2015 Star Wars was going to be just a monster hit. We thought, like, Lucas got a little too Ewok-y, a little too Return of the Jedi with his thing. So Disney is going to just crush this, like they did with Pirates of the Caribbean with Johnny Depp, which came out, I don't know, maybe 5 years before that, I think. And, Pirates of the Caribbean was a huge hit. He did a fantastic job. And people are expecting something like that with Disney Star Wars, and then they put out the 2015 Star Wars, and people in the theater are like, "Oh, is this as bad as like? Did we just see what I thought I saw?" It's like, yeah, there's no fooling you. Anyway, so this Mando show, it's some rapper and comedian or Star Wars or something. So why this doesn't work is the immersion into the show, the willing suspension of disbelief. And yes, I will touch grass while putting my finger in a woman and go outside and read a book, which oddly enough, the left-wing Twitter kids never say to read a book, because you'd probably bring up the Star Wars extended universe and the thousands of books that were written. We have nothing to draw from. We have no sources. The extended universe, I think you could buy the rights to those if you don't already own them. Pretty. There's like no shortage of material. I mean, those people were giving you script ideas. Like, you could probably buy the rights to those very cheaply. Oh, when we said we have no source material, we mean we're not familiar with Star Wars at all. Yeah, that's what you mean, Kathleen Kennedy. So, Star Wars sucks, and the thing is, it doesn't matter. It's beyond saving. Now, here's the other. The other thing is, all of Hollywood is beyond saving. If you still have hope for anything coming from Hollywood, it's time to get beyond that, and just like all these streaming shows. If I can't imagine anyone would still be subscribing, like paying for these shows. You can unsub from all those streaming shows. You're just throwing money away. You're not going to get anything. I mean, at this point, you could just get a hard drive and get the stuff you want on a hard drive. And there's no need to, there's nothing new that's going to come out. And I only say this because I offer the evidence in the terms of Disney streaming Star Wars. They have 4 streaming shows. They all suck very badly. Perhaps you've seen She-Hulk, the Marvel thing, or you probably saw a few episodes of that. You don't make something this bad and turn it around and continue to make stuff this bad and turn it around. Abandon all hope. That's where you are with a lot of this, with all of Hollywood. I think all of Hollywood. So speaking of which, I want to do a movie review of, because I want to include that line, "You smoked yourself," the R word for disabled, which I think is from Harold and Kumar. I want to do a review on that, because once you put on the They Live glasses and you start living your life like seeing everything through those glasses, and you go back and look at those old movies, and Harold and Kumar is so on the nose, it's touching the brain. I mean, it's insane how all the protagonists, I'll do a review on it. Anyway, so Jack Black, the guy is a great comedic actor. He's brilliant for the movies he does. But, I mean, you got to, he's dumb comedy. So, when you go in expecting a dumb comedy, you get that. But he's not Star Wars. And I don't know much about Liza, because I don't listen to modern rap. But she could play the character that sends Luke to the pit. That's about it. Always keep asking the question, does this remind you of Star Wars? Or is it very obviously cultural Bolshevik cancer? They've been peeing on your leg since 2015. They have no plans to stop. There's no need to keep. It's the intermittent reward response chicken experiment, where they have chickens peck, and if they get no reward, well, they won't peck. And if there's a fine line where how often you have to reward the chicken to get them to keep pecking, and they find they can graph out these charts about different groups of chickens that have to get this intermittent reward to keep pecking this thing for a treat. But it's at some point where the treats stop coming, after 100 pecks, the chicken will just give up, and that'll be it. It's yeah, you've passed that point with Star Wars. I think you've passed that point with Hollywood. Anyway, so a lot of this stuff is a humiliation ritual, but it's for an audience that doesn't know that it's being insulted because they're not familiar enough with the original show. I think a lot of them are probably just too young, where Star Wars had a cultural impact that was huge for 5 years. Would have been peak culture, which would have been from 77 on up. And for Harrison Ford, luckily enough for him, he immediately rolled that over into Indiana Jones. So he was just one of the luckiest actors out there. But Star Wars was huge even after Return of the Jedi. And the thing is, at that point, Return of the Jedi, you're looking at Lucas and you're like, why didn't you keep making movies? But it's another It's another question you have to go back and ask him that in 1983, or why don't you stay in that Star Wars universe? But whatever. The thing is, if it's this, like, the audience isn't familiar enough with these shows to know why they're so freaking ridiculous, you can just keep asking yourself, does this look like 77 Star? Oh dear God, does it look like 77 Star Wars: A New Hope? So what you're saying is you want to visit Poland in Hugo Boss and a Volkswagen. Well, yes, that does sound base. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's a personal, rational interpretation of this situation. The rationale is that this is an improvement on Star Wars, except Disney is a bunch of lizards. They cannot improve on George Lucas because he's human. You're not going to be able to improve on 77 Star Wars. The trilogy and the totality of all three movies together, for a kid's movie, it was Shakespeare, which, yes, I realize that Shakespeare was Shakespeare for kids, but you get the idea. You can't think that the lizard Disney is going to improve on something like The Empire Strikes Back. The best these parasites at Disney could possibly do, and that's being kind in describing them, is follow the originals as close as possible, like Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings. He came out when he was filming those things, and he was giving the interviews, and he said, yeah, me and my team, that's what the goal is. We're going to, like, I don't know if he came out and just honestly said, like, yeah, Tolkien was a genius for writing what he did. We're not geniuses. We're very good filmmakers, but if we were geniuses like Tolkien, we would have already put out stuff like, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. But they didn't. Like, they're very good filmmakers. The best you can hope for when you're trying to approach something that's on such a high level. Lord of the Rings was a fantasy book, but it was a very high level fantasy book. Star Wars was for kids for sure, but it was like, as a kids movie, you can still have kids movies that are almost perfect. So you look at all these people and you go, like, can you equal what George Lucas did, or what Tolkien did, or what or like Shakespeare did, or these King Arthur tales where they take these tales and they woke them up. And you're like, but you're not as good as the originals. The best you could hope for is just to try to follow as close to the form as possible, to respect the artist's original vision. And it's the whole concept between transformative and curative. These are not, these people don't give a darn about Star Wars, obviously. It's the only thing they value about Star Wars is the name recognition, the bait and switch, to get people on, you think Star Wars, or your kids are thinking Star Wars, and they know how much you liked it. And they're to get the audience on board with Disney Plus, to brainwash them a little bit, because they're not going to get Star Wars. They're going to get, this kind of cancer. This doesn't look like 77 Star Wars. So what you're saying is you're a istophobic, bigoted Chad Yahtzee in a, I don't know, whatever the tanks the Germans, all I remember the Russian tanks, whatever the Germans were driving around in. What the hell were those tanks called? I don't know. The thing is, they can't have an argument if they can't deflect and straw man. Everything is a straw man argument for them. You go, like, this doesn't look like 77 Star Wars. Oh, we're going to improve on it. You can't improve on George Lucas's original trilogy. And they don't have a counter argument to that, but it's transformative versus curative. It's the only value Star Wars is of to them is to spread propaganda. And they don't have an argument to that, but it's like, we're not getting interviews with these people because their interviews are all softball interviews with friendly sources that are so far to the left. And the thing is, even a softball interview, it's like they know that if they ask a real question, they never get another interview. With Disney, it's like, you just can't do that. You can't alienate Disney. If you get the movies ahead of time and you give reviews and you give an honest review and something's bad, it's like, well, there goes your early access. You're just going to quinkadinkly not be picked to get early access, where everyone else who gets early access gives the movies like at least a certain minimum score. It's like, did they deserve it? No, but they got early access. It's like, that's how they play the game. Anyway, there's no future for you, not only with Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or any of this kind of stuff, with Hollywood at all. At least I'll say with the big screen stuff. The thing is, honestly, even the smaller stuff, there's a lot of people who go in this direction who are just terminally insanely woke. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.